What if I told you that over 2,000 years ago, ancient civilizations built a working computer? What if Antarctica was mapped before it was covered in ice? And what if ancient people had electricity thousands of years before Edison? These aren't just theories. These are real artifacts sitting in museums right now, and they completely shatter everything we think we know about ancient history. I'm going to show you 5 artifacts that archaeologists still can't fully explain. 5 objects that seem impossibly advanced for their time. By the end of this video, you'll question everything you learned in history class. Let's begin. Artifact number 1. The Antikythera mechanism. April 1900. A group of Greek sponge divers are battling a storm near the island of Antikythera. They take shelter, and while waiting for the storm to pass, one diver decides to explore the seafloor. What he finds changes history. 45 meters below the surface, he discovers an ancient Roman shipwreck, bronze statues, pottery, treasures everywhere. But there's something else, a corroded lump of bronze and wood, fused together by 2,000 years underwater. Nobody pays much attention to it at first, just another piece of debris. But then, it splits open. Inside this corroded lump, archaeologists find something that shouldn't exist. Gears. Dozens of precisely cut bronze gears, interlocking, meshing together with incredible precision. At least 30 gears, different sizes, different tooth counts, all designed to work together. This is 100 BC. The ancient Greeks weren't supposed to have this technology. Nobody was. Imagine finding a laptop in a medieval castle. That's how out of place this device is. For decades, scientists couldn't figure out what this thing was for. Then in the 1970s, a physicist named Derek de Solla Price spent years analyzing it. His conclusion: this was an astronomical calculator. Not just any calculator. This device could predict the positions of the sun, moon, and planets. It could forecast eclipses. It tracked the Olympic Games cycle. It even accounted for the moon's elliptical orbit. Think about that. The moon doesn't orbit Earth in a perfect circle. It's slightly oval. Ancient Greek astronomers knew this, and they built it into the machine. Modern scientists using X-ray technology and CT scans have found inscriptions on the gears, tiny Greek letters, instructions, like an ancient user manual. One gear has 223 teeth. That's the exact number of lunar months in the Saros cycle, which is how ancient astronomers predicted eclipses. This wasn't a lucky guess. This was sophisticated mathematics turned into mechanical engineering. But here's where it gets really strange. We have no evidence of anything else like this for over 1,000 years. The next time we see geared mechanisms this complex, medieval European clocks in the 1300s AD. That's a technology gap of 1,400 years. How did the Greeks build this? Who designed it? And most importantly, what else did they build that we haven't found yet? The Antikythera mechanism proves that ancient civilizations were far more technologically advanced than we ever imagined. It sat at the bottom of the ocean for 2,000 years, waiting to shatter our assumptions. And it makes you wonder, what else is still out there, waiting to be discovered? Artifact number 2. The Baghdad Battery. 1936. Baghdad, Iraq. A German archaeologist named Wilhelm König is cataloguing artifacts at the Iraq Museum. He picks up a small clay jar, about 5 inches tall, looks ordinary, probably used for storing scrolls or something. But when he looks inside, his blood runs cold. Inside the jar is a copper cylinder. Inside the cylinder, an iron rod. The iron rod is isolated from the copper by asphalt. König stares at this object. His hands start shaking because he recognizes this configuration. This is a battery. A galvanic cell, the same basic design we use today. Copper and iron, separated by an electrolyte. But this jar is 2,000 years old. The official date? Somewhere between 250 BC and 250 AD, probably from the Parthian Empire. That's 1,700 years before Alessandro Volta invented the first modern battery in 1800. König publishes his findings. The scientific community loses its mind. Many dismiss it immediately. Impossible, they say. Ancient people didn't have electricity. But then, someone decides to test it. In 1940, an engineer at General Electric named Willard Gray builds an exact replica of the Baghdad battery. He fills it with grape juice as the electrolyte. It works. The device generates approximately 1.1 volts of electricity. Not a lot of power, but it works. Later experiments using vinegar or citric acid produce even better results, up to 2 volts. So the question isn't, can it generate electricity? It can. The question is, did they know it could? Here's where it gets interesting. Archaeologists have found over a dozen of these jars, all with the same construction: copper cylinder, iron rod, asphalt seal. If you connect several of these batteries in series, you can increase the voltage significantly. Enough to do what? Some researchers believe they were used for electroplating, coating objects with a thin layer of gold or silver using electrical current. And here's the thing. Archaeologists have found ancient artifacts with impossibly thin layers of gold plating, so thin and uniform that modern scientists can't figure out how they were made without electricity. Others think the batteries were used for electrotherapy, ancient medicine. There are texts describing healers using tingling metal rods to treat pain. Could they have been using electrical shocks? Skeptics argue the jars were just for storing scrolls, that the electrical properties are accidental, a coincidence. But that coincidence is remarkably precise. The exact configuration needed to generate electricity, built not once, but dozens of times, all identical. The Baghdad battery raises an uncomfortable question. What if ancient people understood electricity centuries before we thought they did? What if our timeline of technological progress is completely wrong? We may never know for sure. Many of these artifacts were destroyed during the Iraq War in 2003, lost forever. But the ones that remain continue to spark debate. literally. Artifact number 3. The Piri Reis map. Constantinople, 1513. An Ottoman admiral named Piri Reis is working on something extraordinary. He's a skilled cartographer, a naval commander, and he's obsessed with maps. For years, he's been collecting ancient charts from every corner of the world. Greek maps, Portuguese maps, Arab maps, even maps captured from Spanish ships. He studies them all, compares them, and then creates his masterpiece, the Piri Reis world map. It's drawn on gazelle skin, incredibly detailed, shows the Atlantic Ocean, the west coast of Africa, Europe, and the east coast of South America. Beautiful, accurate, but not particularly unusual, except for one thing. At the bottom of the map, there's a coastline that shouldn't be there. Antarctica. But not Antarctica as we know it today. Not the frozen wasteland covered in ice. This shows Antarctica's actual coastline. The mountains, the bays, the rivers, the coastline that exists under 2 miles of ice. Here's the problem. Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1820. That's 300 years after this map was drawn. And we didn't map the actual coastline beneath the ice until 1949, using modern sonar technology. So how did Piri Reis, in 1513, draw a coastline that we wouldn't see for another 400 years? In 1960, the United States Air Force got involved. Captain Arlington Mallory, an expert in ancient maps, presented the Piri Reis map to the Air Force Cartography Unit. They compared it to modern seismic data of Antarctica. The conclusion: the map is accurate. Not just close, accurate. The shapes match. The proportions are correct. Even small details like islands and inlets line up perfectly. One Air Force officer said, quote, "We don't know how they could do this without flying." But it gets stranger. Piri Reis left notes on his map. He wrote that he didn't create this from scratch. He copied it from older maps, much older maps. He specifically mentions using about 20 source maps, including some from the time of Alexander the Great. That's 300 BC. He even claims that some of his sources went back further, to maps that might have been drawn when Antarctica was ice-free. Now here's where your brain should start hurting. Scientists believe Antarctica has been covered in ice for at least 6,000 years. Some estimates say millions of years. For this map to show the ice-free coastline, it would have to be based on knowledge from before the Ice Age. Before recorded history. There are only a few possible explanations. 1. There was an advanced civilization thousands of years before the Egyptians or Sumerians who mapped the entire world, including Antarctica, and then disappeared without a trace. 2. Ancient sailors were far more capable than we ever imagined, traveling to Antarctica and mapping it during brief ice-free periods we don't know about. Or 3. It's all a massive coincidence. The shapes just happen to match. But the odds of that? Astronomical. The Piri Reis map hangs today in the Topkapi Palace Museum in Istanbul. A beautiful piece of history and a terrifying suggestion that someone, somewhere, thousands of years ago, knew far more about our world than they should have. Artifact number 4. The Voynich Manuscript, 1912. Italy. A rare book dealer named Wilfrid Voynich is rummaging through an old Jesuit library. He finds a manuscript, old, strange, about 240 pages of vellum. He opens it and immediately realizes he's holding something impossible. The book is filled with bizarre illustrations, naked women bathing in green pools, plants that don't exist, astronomical charts that make no sense, strange tubes and containers connected by impossible geometry, and text, page after page of flowing, confident handwriting, in a language that no one has ever seen before. Not Latin, not Greek, not Arabic or Hebrew or Sanskrit, something else entirely. Voynich brings the manuscript to the world's best cryptographers, code breakers, linguists, experts in dead languages. No one can read it. During World War I, the most advanced code breakers in the world take a crack at it. Failure. In World War II, teams that broke the Nazi Enigma code try their hand. Failure. Professional linguists study it for decades. They analyze the patterns, the letter frequency, the structure. And here's what makes it truly bizarre. The text follows linguistic rules. It has grammar, syntax. The words appear in patterns consistent with natural language. It's not random gibberish. It's not a simple code. It behaves like a real language. But a language with no connection to any known language family on Earth. Carbon dating places the manuscript between 1404 and 1438. Medieval Europe. But what's in it? The book appears to be divided into sections. One section shows plants, detailed botanical drawings, except none of these plants exist. Or if they did, we've never found them. Some look vaguely familiar, like distorted versions of real plants. Others are completely alien. Another section shows astronomical charts, circular diagrams with stars and celestial symbols, but the patterns don't match any known star maps. Then there's the biological section. Pages and pages of naked women, standing or bathing in interconnected pools filled with green or blue liquid. The pools are connected by tubes and pipes in elaborate networks. What does it mean? Medical diagrams, alchemical processes, religious symbolism. Nobody knows. Modern computer analysis has revealed something fascinating. The text has a statistical structure, similar to known languages. It follows Zipf's law, a mathematical pattern found in all natural human languages. This means it's almost certainly not a hoax. Creating a fake text that perfectly mimics natural language patterns would require knowledge of linguistic statistics that didn't exist in the 1400s. Some researchers believe it's written in a lost language. Others think it's an elaborate cipher. Some suggest it's an artificial language created by one brilliant mind. A few even propose it's not meant to be read at all, but rather it's a work of art designed to look like a mysterious text. But if it's fake, why put so much effort into creating realistic linguistic patterns? And if it's real, what knowledge was so important it needed to be hidden in an unbreakable code? In 1969, The manuscript was donated to Yale University. It sits in their rare book library today, digitized, available for anyone to study. Thousands of people have tried to crack it. All have failed. The Voynich Manuscript remains the most mysterious book in the world, a document that appears to contain profound knowledge, written in a language that may never have been spoken, describing a world that may never have existed. Or maybe a world we've simply forgotten. Artifact number 5. The Crystal Skulls. 1924. The jungles of British Honduras, now called Belize. A British adventurer named Frederick Mitchell Hedges is excavating ancient Mayan ruins. His daughter Anna is with him. She's 17 years old, and it's her birthday. While digging through a collapsed altar, she sees something glinting in the dirt. She reaches down and pulls out a human skull made entirely of crystal. Not carved from stone, not molded or cast. A life-sized human skull carved from a single piece of transparent quartz crystal. Perfect proportions, anatomically correct. The jaw is even detachable. It weighs 11 pounds, and when you look into its eyes, light refracts through the crystal in strange ways, making the skull appear to glow from within. Mitchell Hedges claimed the skull was at least 3,600 years old, a sacred object from an ancient Mayan civilization. But when modern scientists examined it, they discovered something disturbing. This skull should not exist. Here's why. Crystal is one of the hardest natural materials on Earth. It ranks 7 on the Mohs hardness scale. Carving it requires tools harder than crystal itself. Ancient Mesoamericans didn't have steel. They didn't have diamond-tipped tools. The best they had was copper and stone. So how did they carve intricate details, perfect curves, and smooth surfaces into solid quartz? In 1970, the skull was examined by engineers at Hewlett-Packard Laboratories. Hewlett-Packard worked extensively with quartz crystals for computer technology. If anyone could figure out how this was made, it was them. Their conclusion shocked everyone. The skull was carved against the natural axis of the crystal. That's important. Quartz has a crystalline structure with natural planes. If you carve with those planes, it's difficult but possible. If you carve against them, the crystal should shatter into 1,000 pieces. But this skull didn't shatter. Not only that, the engineers found no microscopic scratches on the surface. None. When you carve stone or crystal with tools, even with modern equipment, you leave tiny scratches. It's unavoidable. This skull had number scratches. The Hewlett-Packard report stated, quote, "This skull should not exist. Based on our understanding of crystal properties and carving techniques, it should have shattered during creation." They estimated that even with modern diamond-tipped tools, carving this skull would take over 300 years of continuous work. But wait, it gets weirder. The Mitchell Hedges skull isn't alone. Over the years, more crystal skulls have appeared, different sizes, different styles, found in different locations, some in museums, some in private collections. The British Museum has one. The Smithsonian has one. And here's where the story takes a turn. In 2008, modern electron microscope analysis revealed something uncomfortable. Several of the skulls, including the ones in the British Museum and Smithsonian, showed evidence of being carved with rotary tools that didn't exist until the 1800s. These skulls were fakes, carved in Germany in the late 19th century, then sold as ancient artifacts. Museums quietly removed them from their ancient artifact collections. But the Mitchell-Hedges skull? Still unexplained. Skeptics argue it must also be a fake, just a more sophisticated one. But no one has been able to explain how it was made without modern tools, how it avoided shattering, or why there are no tool marks. Believers point to legends. Ancient Mayan and Aztec texts speak of 13 crystal skulls scattered across the world. When all 13 are brought together, according to prophecy, they will reveal profound knowledge. Sounds like fantasy, right? Except we've found crystal skulls, multiple crystal skulls, in different parts of the world. Coincidence? Hoax? Or something stranger? The Mitchell-Hedges skull today is owned by Anna Mitchell-Hedges' estate. It's kept in a private collection, occasionally displayed at museums. People who see it in person report strange experiences, feelings of being watched, visions, headaches. Probably just suggestion and atmosphere. Probably. But whether it's ancient or modern, real or fake, the crystal skull represents humanity's obsession with mysteries, our need to believe that there's more to history than what we've been told. And maybe, just maybe, there is. 5 artifacts. An ancient Greek computer that predicted the cosmos. Clay jars from Iraq that generated electricity. A map showing continents that hadn't been discovered yet. A book written in a language that doesn't exist. And a crystal skull that shouldn't be possible to carve. Each one challenges what we think we know about human history. Maybe they're all elaborate hoaxes, coincidences, misunderstandings. Or maybe they're proof that ancient civilizations were far more advanced than we ever imagined. Maybe history isn't a straight line of constant progress. Maybe it's a cycle. Civilizations rising, falling, losing knowledge, rediscovering it. These artifacts sit in museums and collections, waiting for someone to finally understand them. And they remind us that the past is far more mysterious than any history book admits. What do you think? Are these artifacts proof of lost civilizations, ancient technology, or just our desire to believe in something extraordinary? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to see more mysteries like this, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching.